Hey everybody, this is James Gorey. Welcome to the Banana Republican podcast. This cast, I'm going to talk about kind of the latest news on the war on drugs, the Trump-style war on drugs. Immediate release March 10th, 2026. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, the official website of the U.S. government, has issued an expanded Southwest Border Geographic Targeting Order. I'll just read this really quick. The U.S. Department of Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or FinCEN, has issued an expanded Geographic Targeting Order, GTO, to help law enforcement combat the illicit activities and money laundering of Mexico-based cartels and other criminal actors along the southwest border of the United States. It's about time. And believe me, I think we can all agree that when Trump says he's going to do something, whether you like it or not, I don't agree with everything he's done, but at least he's predictable in the sense that one way or another, if he says he's going to do something, it's going to get done if he can possibly make it happen. I think this expansion, this geographic targeting order is the right thing to do. And actually, it comes up on the heels of a lot of other initiatives and actions that the U.S. government has taken, that Trump administration has taken, that I happen to agree with, and I think you probably do too, at least if you want a more stable, decent, drug-free, human trafficking-free Western Hemisphere. If you go down the list, sure, Venezuela, top of the list, right? I mean, Maduro was smuggling drugs, and the first thing the U.S. did was warn him, stop doing that, and then they went after the boats, and that made the news, obviously, and boats exploding, people dying, and very controversial. But this administration views the influx of these dangerous drugs, which kill hundreds of thousands of people a year, Americans, a lot of young people, as a security threat. Certainly, it's a threat to our people, and the federal government's job is to protect the citizens of the United States. So I'm good with that. I'm okay with that. I'm not thrilled that people are dying at all. But stop doing those things and you'll be okay. So Trump removing Maduro, who was a narco-terrorist, he was in league and in bed with, obviously, Tehran, the Iranians, the Russians, the Chinese. That's a big deal. Not only, as I spoke about earlier, not only has it cut off or minimized the flow of oil, of energy to China, it's also kicking them out of the country, kicking them out of the hemisphere. Panama is another decision, and that preceded Venezuela, where the U.S. said, look, you're violating the spirit and the letter of the law of the Panama Treaty, done way back in the Carter years, like 1979, which I disagreed with then as a kid. It made no sense to me then. But the point being is that the U.S. government, the Trump administration, looked at that and said, wait a minute, we have Chinese organizations, entities, dual-use technology, dual-use material on both sides of the canal, effectively controlling that seagate. And that's a separate issue, but the Panamanians were in bed with the Chinese to a large extent, and China was gaining control of that seagate, and that's not good. So even before Venezuela, Trump said, look, we're not going to allow China to just dominate the Panama Canal, and the Panama Canal Treaty explicitly states in so many words that the U.S., they have to keep it up, and the U.S. has the ability to maintain it, and its ships have to take priority, which wasn't the case. There's a variety of codicils in that agreement, if you will, that weren't being acknowledged and weren't being followed. So it's Panama. China's not too happy about that. It's Venezuela and the drugs. El Salvador, which has its own Trump-like President Guayo, I think his name is. I should have looked that up before I started this cast. But young guy, Christian guy, and he's just imprisoning all these MS-13 gang members, and cleaning up El Salvador. It needs to happen. El Salvador is a beautiful country. Never been there, but I know somewhat of the area. I've been in Latin America, Mexico, and Argentina, and Brazil, and so forth. So it's plenty. There's no reason they can't have a thriving economy, a decent economy. Costa Rica, right next door, in the vicinity, has a lovely country, safe society, stable economy, all that kind of stuff. There's no reason these other countries can't as well. So if you look at it, it's Panama, it's Venezuela, Um, well, who's next on the list is it's Cuba. And as we speak, Cuba is negotiating with the Trump administration to transition, from what I read, to transition out of the communist government after 65, 67, whatever it's been, 67 years. So that's another biggie, right? They're coming to the Trump administration. They see what happens in Venezuela. And as a sidebar, you get a heck of a lot of traction when you follow up on your word, when you say what you mean and you mean what you say. And that's what's happening with the Trump administration. They're seeing people now take them seriously. And look, the guys in Havana, ruling Havana right now, they don't want to be Maduroed, if I could use it as a verb. They don't want to be Maduroed. They set us up as some kind of easy transition, and because they know it's going to happen. And Trump has already foreshadowed. He's already said, well, the Cuban regime, the communist regime in Cuba is way past its sell date. So that's going to happen. Mexico, which I opened this thing with the geographic targeting order. The U.S. is now going after the Mexican cartels in a very big way. And don't think that Sheinbaum, who runs Mexico, isn't shaking in her stilettos or whatever she wears. I don't know, mules, stilettos, whatever, high heel shoes, flip flops. Who knows? She knows now that Trump is serious. There's no question, none whatsoever, that the U.S. government is going after the drug trade, the drug cartels, the money laundering, the human trafficking, all the inroads that the cartel has made in the U.S. throughout the country, but especially along the border region. That's going away. If the Trump administration has their way, it's going away, and that's a big deal. So we've got, and then there's also been talk and discussions about Colombia and their source of drugs. And Trump has even said to other Latin American leaders, look, don't be afraid to use the military on these cartels. These cartels are very well armed. They're vicious, they're savages, they're criminals. They do no good in the world. None. No good, at least no good for the U.S. I don't know if they're running orphanages in the poorer parts of Latin America. Maybe they are. But as far as the U.S. is concerned, they have nothing but evil intent for us. And that's what that's about. So Trump is doing something that needed to be done 30, 40 years ago. And that's not turned a blind eye or even benefit. Who knows who's taking money from these cartels? I happen to think in America we have the best politicians that money can buy. And I don't think a lot of those politicians care where the money comes from. Certainly coming from China, certainly coming from other affiliated countries out of China in their orbit, in their sphere of influence. Why wouldn't it come from cartels, right? So Trump's domestic, you're not seeing a lot of this, but his domestic sort of Western Hemisphere policy makes a lot of sense. Do we want armed cartels running Mexico and running drugs into the U.S., trafficking people, trafficking kids? Do we want what's been going on for the last 10, 20 years and really escalated under the Biden administration? For all you lefties out there who voted for Biden, that's what happened. That escalated. And that's not good for the country. So if you hate Trump, if you've got Trump derangement syndrome, whatever it is, yeah, you probably won't see this, or you won't admit it to yourself. Because if you admit it to yourself, you've got to admit a lot of other things. So, but for rational people, if you just ask the question, are we better off? Is the country better off? Are people better off with or without cartels on our border and in coming in and out of our country? Are the Mexican people better off with or without cartels? Are people just better off with or without cartels and drugs, human trafficking, smuggling, everything else that goes on down there, all these arms and weapons? So if you ask a simple question, you can ask that same question in other parts of the world. Is the U.S. or are the people of Venezuela better off without Maduro, without the narco-eco-terrorism that they're doing? The answer to that, all those questions, yes, of course. Venezuela was the jewel, the richest nation in the Caribbean, probably in Latin America. It wasn't that long ago, 20, 30 years ago. You have oil, highly educated, talented people. I was talking to a lawyer from Venezuela 6, 7 months ago, and he was working in a warehouse at Amazon. Why? Because they were coming after him. He's an intellectual, he's capable, he's smart, and they don't want those kind of people around. So he said, you say anything, anywhere, they come after your family. What's left of your family in Venezuela, they come after you. So is Latin America, is the Western Hemisphere better off with or without cartels? Better off with or without drugs? Better off with or without communist nations? Better off with or without a Chinese, Iranian, Russian-led Venezuela? Simple questions. We don't have to live this way. They don't have to live that way. And the Trump administration is doing exactly what ought to be done, and that is eliminating these people once and for all. And we're seeing dividends, as I said earlier. The dividends of doing what you say you're going to do is that you have credibility. And the Cuban regime is on its last legs, and they know it. And they're going to either be invaded by the U.S. at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and by dinner time, it's over, or they're going to have some kind of negotiation. It's like Saddam Hussein when he crawled out of the spider hole. You know, I'm the president of Iraq, and I'm willing to negotiate. Yeah, you are, because you're in the spider hole, surrounded by a bunch of guys with large weapons. That's how Cuba feels. That's how the Cuban government feels right now. So whatever else is going on in Iran, and by the way, you can ask the same question. Is the world better off? Is the region better off? Is Israel better off? Are the Iranians better off without the Shia regime in charge, without a bunch of fanatics slaughtering them wholesale? All those questions are the answer to all those questions is yes. Yeah. Everyone's better off without fanatic Islamists running Iran. Okay? Same kind of value system, same kind of MO, motive operandi. Shoot the people who don't agree with you. Poison all your neighbors around you. Export your bad behavior to Hamas, to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, to Islamic Jihad, to everybody else. And so the same logic applies. So if you step back, the Trump administration is trying to clean up the world to a large extent. Get rid of these vile, nasty people. And there are vile, nasty people in power. China is among the worst. I said in an earlier cast that they're the world's supermarket for organ harvesting and organ trade. They're butchering people all the time for their organs, all the time. Christians, Falun Gong, Uyghurs, doesn't matter. If you disagree with the ruling people in the CCP, you're an organ donor, whether you like it or not. And that's the reality. So think about it this way. If you step back and go, well, is the world better off with no cartels, with no drug trade, with no human trafficking, with no sex trafficking? Is the world better off without communist enclaves like Cuba and and Venezuela? Is the world better off without Iran and China and the Russians spreading their toxicity around the world of domination, of suppression, oppression, and murder and everything else? Is the world better off with the Iranian mullahs out of the way and a free Iranian people to let their talents and their freedom flower? The answer is yeah. Is the world better off with or without Hamas? Simple question. It applies across the board. And whether you like Trump, you hate Trump, you've got to admit the world would be better off without those types of regimes in it and spreading their messages, spreading their vile hatred and their toxins and their toxicity and the murder and everything else. So the world is better off without those kinds of regimes. And I think if you step back into the large picture, I think that's what makes a lot of sense. I'm James Gorey with the Banana Republican. I'll see you next time. Hey, be sure and give us a like, a share, or unsubscribe if you like this kind of content. Take care.